She wasn't supposed to make it out alive.
For the first time, the brave 12-year-old girl at the center of a case that shocked parents around the world.
Slender Man.
The parents who sent their daughter on a sleepover, her two friends, taking her into the woods, stabbing her 19 times, telling police they wanted to impress a character on the internet, Slender Man.
And has Peyton talked at all about the horror of that moment?
David Muir's exclusive journey with one extraordinary family.
Where on earth do you think she got the strength to crawl out of those woods?
She said I wanted to live.
Tonight, what the girls revealed to police.
They wanted to kill the victim so people would know that Slender Man was real.
And this evening, what we didn't know. Inside the plan in the works for months. Then, the moment a mother first sees her daughter.
I said, "You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine."
And tonight, right here, the triumph. For the first time, the 12-year-old girl who never gave up.
You ain't taking that from me.
And her family with a message for the world.
We knew that she had the strength, but now I think everybody knows that.
Everybody does know.
The 2020 special, Out of the Woods. Here now, David Muir.
Good evening, and tonight here, our journey with one courageous family, one brave 12-year-old girl. For the first time, her parents are talking, and you will meet 12-year-old Peyton, who somehow crawled out of those woods saying she wanted to live. Her parents telling me they now want the world to see their daughter's beautiful smile, a smile that is just beginning to return. And they hope that we can somehow begin a conversation tonight, convinced that there is a reason she survived. It's a Friday night in an American town, Waukesha, Wisconsin. And a mother and father, like so many parents across this country, are sending their daughter on a sleepover. Peyton Leitner is 12, and they know her friend well, Morgan Geyser, another 12-year-old, celebrating her birthday. Why would this night be any different? But it was.
On Saturday, May 31st, 2014, a 12-year-old girl was stabbed.
You're about to go inside a case that horrified this country.
Two 12-year-old girls charged with viciously attacking their friend.
She was stabbed 19 times.
Parents everywhere saying, this could have been my child. An ordinary slumber party, 3 girls and someone else, an unknown figure getting into that party too. A fictional character from the internet named Slender Man, who so many parents had never even heard of. We have spent months in that town, and tonight, for the first time, you're about to hear from that little girl's family.
She was forced to go into the woods.
From the hero who found her at the edge of the woods.
She was laying right here.
The doctors who saw how close to death she came. The knife cut through the tissue. And the school where just this month they were all hoping she'd come back. One family's stunning journey about to play out tonight, right before your eyes.
It was a Friday night, right?
It was a Friday night.
Their daughter Peyton had been looking forward to it for weeks.
You remember how excited she was that Friday afternoon.
Oh my gosh, she was so excited. She squealed and jumped up and down.
Excited when her mother told her she could go to her sleepover early.
Picked up even earlier than she
Picked up even earlier than she was expecting. She was so excited.
And had she gone on sleepovers before?
Oh yeah. And this was just her best friend's birthday
It was just
party.
another Friday night.
And then they were talking about it for weeks.
I mean, they were going to go skating.
They were going to go to state. Peyton loved Skateland.
So she was going to go roller skating, have some pizza, and spend the night at her best friend's house.
Yeah. They were probably going to watch movies.
And so you thought this
and play American Girl. Peyton brought her American Girl doll with her.
She brought her American Girl.
But Peyton would not come home the next morning.
Do you think Peyton had any idea?
No. She had absolutely no idea.
No.
What she was walking into?
No. She was blindsided.
Her parents blindsided too. Friday night, they send their daughter off. Saturday morning, Mom is in the backyard.
Joe was at work. I heard the doorbell ring and the dog bark. And it was a Saturday morning at like 9:30, 9:45. And around the side of the house up over the deck came a uniformed officer. She had a badge and a gun. They walked around the back of the deck, asked, are you Peyton's mom? The first thing that goes through my mind is, so something has happened to somebody that I love, because that's the only reason a uniformed officer and a detective comes to your house on a Saturday morning.
She would slowly begin to piece together what had happened in the 16 hours since Peyton had left for that sleepover. It is unthinkable. The first moment anyone would begin to learn of that horror was this call to 911.
911. I'm transferring over a caller on Big Bend.
After she crawled out of the woods. And just listen, at first, the operators cannot believe what they are hearing.
Came upon a 12-year-old female. She appears to be stabbed.
She appears to be what?
Stabbed.
Stabbed?
Correct.
Greg Steinberg was riding his bike that morning on a path that had actually been chained off. It was pure chance that he came this way.
Sir, are you with her right now?
Yes.
Is she awake?
She's awake.
Is there any bleeding going on?
Her clothing has got blood on it.
Okay, and you found her and she was just laying there?
Yes.
Paramedics racing to the scene, and listen, the operator is still fearing that 12-year-old could be in danger.
Is there any assailant around?
I don't see anybody.
And let me know immediately if you see anything else suspicious in the area, a car, a person, anything. Keep your eyes open.
On that call, you can actually hear Greg comforting Peyton.
Somebody's coming. Any minute. Who did that to you?
And you were biking by and she says to you what?
Could you help me, please? I've been stabbed multiple times. I quick got out my cell phone. I was shaking and dialed 911. I just stayed with the 911 operator, and I offered her water because I had a water bottle on my bike. The other thing she said was she's having trouble breathing.
And she's right here laying on the grass.
Mm-hmm.
But you had no idea how many times she'd actually been stabbed.
Unaware how many times, unaware who did this to her. He watches as the ambulance rushes her away, the hospital less than 4 miles away from that path.
So you bring her in here.
Her heart rate was very elevated and her blood pressure was low, so that was fairly ominous.
And when you looked at her, it was immediately apparent she'd been stabbed multiple times.
Yeah, to her chest and abdomen and arm and leg.
Doctors concerned she might not survive, and her mother, Stacy, has just been told Peyton has been rushed to the hospital. She's also been told it was her best friend, Morgan, who did this. She calls her husband.
I went in the house and called Joe, and I said, Peyton's been stabbed. Morgan stabbed Peyton. You need to come home. They need to rush Peyton into surgery. So then I really lost it.
So you got in the car?
Got in the car.
Minutes later, arriving.
So I walked into the trauma room that she was in, and she was pale as a ghost. She was terrified. She was crying. She couldn't breathe.
But she saw you there.
She saw me, and she put her hand out, and I rushed over to her, and I put my arms around her, and I laid next to her, and I hugged her, and I said, "You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine." But I could see that she was covered. Her arms and her legs and her abdomen, they were covered in stab wounds.
They pull her away from her daughter, and she can soon hear the nurses counting.
And all I hear is, there's 5 on her arm, there's 7 on her leg, and I'm thinking, what, 7? What? And one of the nurses says, all right, I count 19, and then the second nurse said, I count 19 as well. 19? What? There's no way.
There were so many stab wounds, it took 2 nurses to count them, 19 in all. And her little girl is now being raced down the hall.
Because then they took her into surgery.
Then they took her into surgery.
Did you say anything to Peyton as they were wheeling her away?
That I loved her and that she would be okay.
But there was something else Peyton's mother was thinking at the same time.
Morgan didn't do this, is what's going through my head. There's no way. There's no way that's what happened. Morgan is 12.
But that's exactly what investigators believe, that Morgan and the only other girl who was invited to that sleepover, Anissa Wire, did this. But they were nowhere to be found.
They had run away and the police hadn't found them yet. And we just knew that Peyton told us Morgan stabbed her and the police hadn't been able to find the girls.
And in fact, police believe those girls were walking.
Yeah.
They were going to find a mansion in the woods.
Oh, the mansion, yeah, the mansion in the woods. They were going to the Nicolay Forest because they believed that there was a mansion there that Slenderman lived in.
Incredibly, police say those girls were now headed to find a mansion where they believed a fictitious internet character truly lived. A character named Slenderman, who police say they were hoping to impress. All while their 12-year-old friend Peyton is in the OR, fighting off death. When we come back, the doctors who discover it is worse than anyone thought. We're with the surgeon who saves her.
It's less than a millimeter between living and dying.
Yes. And suddenly, authorities find those 2 other girls. What they reveal about why they did it. And later tonight here, the 12-year-old survivor, Peyton, who you will never forget.
2020 continues with Out of the Woods. Once again, David Muir.
Waukesha, Wisconsin, just outside Milwaukee. And on a Saturday morning this past May, a horrific tale is just beginning to emerge. A birthday sleepover with 3 12-year-olds the night before. And now 2 girls are missing. The other, Peyton Leichner, has somehow crawled out of the woods, covered in stab wounds, 19 of them. She's now being wheeled into the operating room, having just told her mother her friends did this to her. Outside that hospital, in that town,
a major search by ground.
These are the woods where the stabbing
Police are still on the scene here.
A frantic search for the 2 missing, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire.
2 12-year-old girls stabbing their friend nearly to death is unimaginable anytime, but especially for a safe community like the city of Waukesha.
So unimaginable that even the brother of one of those missing girls at first confused, fearing for her safety too, showing reporters photos of his sister, asking, have you seen her?
That's her, that's Anissa. She's been missing for I don't know how long now.
But the horrifying truth, even for him, the reason they're searching is about to set in.
We're not entirely sure. We have absolutely no idea what's happened to my younger sister.
While back at the hospital, the surgeon, John Kellerman, is about to discover just how much damage has been done.
You'll never forget the moment she came in?
No. The coronary artery is
He tells me about one of the stab wounds to the heart.
The knife came directly down at this point where this large branch was coming off of this major artery and cut through the tissue overlying it so that the vessels were totally exposed by this injury.
The knife cut through the tissue, but not the artery itself.
Exactly. The knife stopped at the wall of the artery.
And had it not?
Had it not, she would have had a major heart attack from the amount of bleeding and probably died within a minute or 2.
That close to death, but they were now saving her life. While the hunt for the other 2 girls is in high gear, every agency in the area searching.
We had the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, the City of Waukesha Police Department, New Berlin Police Department, City of Waukesha Fire Department, and Flight for Life, all scouring that area.
Then, nearly 5 hours after Peyton crawled out of those woods, the 2 other girls are found. They were right here along Interstate 94, heading out of Waukesha. A knife with a 5-inch blade found in one of the girls' bags. Police Chief Russell Jack takes us back to the spot.
Both suspects had blood on their clothes. The knife from the stabbing was located in the backpack that was in the possession of the 2 suspects.
Police say they were carrying clothes, granola bars, water bottles. One of the girls carrying a picture of her mother and father and siblings. She wanted to remember what they looked like after leaving her town for that imaginary mansion in the woods. Neither girl puts up a fight. Taken into custody, they would soon be questioned, just as the other 12-year-old, so excited about that sleepover, is coming out of surgery.
So 6 hours, your little girl is in the OR. And when that surgeon comes out, what did he reveal?
He said, so we had to crack her chest. It was awful to hear that she had to go through that.
How close do you think she was to losing her?
If the knife had gone the width of a human hair further, she wouldn't have lived.
Human hair. What is that, a millimeter?
Less than a millimeter.
Between living and dying?
Yes.
Where on earth do you think she got the strength to crawl out of those woods?
Well, we asked her, and she said, I wanted to live.
She said she wanted to live.
She knew that if she couldn't get out of the woods, that she wasn't going to live.
And as investigators prepare to question those 2 girls about what happened in the woods, 2 parents were about to ask their daughter what happened too. At first, Peyton couldn't talk, writing to communicate.
Do you remember the first message she wrote?
I want to go home.
I want to go home.
When can I go home?
And has Peyton talked at all about the horror of that moment?
She told me she was scared. But the first time I asked her what she remembered about what happened, she said, all I remember is the pain.
The pain.
And they would reveal to me there was something else she asked.
Did they get them? We told her they were found and the police have them.
And as a dad in that moment, how hard was that?
Harder than I would have ever been able to imagine. This is my little girl who's laying there, and the only thing that I could tell her at the time to make her feel better was that the police have them and she was safe with us.
His daughter terrified of the two girls who were her friends.
How well did you know these two other girls?
It was Peyton's best friend.
There was no question in your mind that they were best friends.
They were best
friends since about fourth grade.
Fourth grade is when we met Morgan for the first time.
They say Peyton would talk to Morgan every night on the phone.
Were there ever any red flags?
They would have little arguments, but every 12-year-old girl has little arguments.
The other 12-year-old, Anissa Wire, they had not met, but they say Peyton knew her from school. And as Joe and Stacy reassure their daughter that the girls have been found, police now begin to ask the questions. What did they do to their friend? And even more disturbing, why did they do it?
Both of them were very forthcoming in telling their version of the story and the details.
When we come back, the bone-chilling plan emerges. The two 12-year-olds telling police they were plotting for months.
The plan was to murder her. She wasn't supposed to make it out alive.
And where were they going next? That fictional mansion. And who were they hoping to find?
They told police they wanted to kill the victim so people would know that Slender Man was real.
Who is this mysterious fictional character born on the internet? And what those girls told police about why they did this when we come back.
Out of the Woods continues. Once again, David Muir.
12-year-old Peyton Leitner, now out of surgery and in her hospital bed, still unable to talk, writing messages to her parents instead, asking, did they get them? And across town at the Waukesha Police Department, they had. The two other friends at that sleepover now answering questions of their own. Ellen Gabler is a reporter at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. She has followed this case closely.
The thing that was the most surprising and shocking to me was how planned out this whole thing was.
The portrait they paint even before those woods is chilling. A plot, they tell police, that was in the works for months.
You can't believe this is actually 12-year-olds, especially 12-year-old girls.
They tell police they committed this crime in part out of their devotion to a character they discovered on the internet, Slender Man. A tall, faceless, mysterious figure, a fictional character who lurks in the background, sometimes peering over the shoulders of children. The story of Slender Man changing, evolving all the time, with help from fans all over the world, adding to the story online, giving this fictional character new life every day. You have said that Slender Man is the boogeyman of this digital generation.
He is the thing that we fear that we don't actually encounter, right? So we check under our beds for the Slender Man, but he's, not actually there.
Not there because he doesn't exist. But listen to what these two girls begin to tell police. Anissa Wire revealing to investigators it was Morgan's idea to kill Peyton, to prove themselves, quote, worthy to Slender Man. Anissa telling police her friend suggested, quote, we should be proxies of Slender. Anissa says she was surprised by Morgan's plan, but excited to prove that this fictional internet character actually existed, to prove the skeptics wrong.
The girls were very clear with police that they were trying to kill the victim. They wanted to do it as a sacrifice to Slender Man. One of them said that Slender Man had been watching her.
And in excruciating detail, they describe multiple plots, all beginning with that Friday night sleepover. Morgan's father picking up Peyton, who was over the moon about this slumber party. They go to Skateland to go roller skating, and there was already a plan for later.
They went to Skateland that night, and they went skating, and they had originally planned to kill their friend that night in Morgan's house.
Peyton's own parents, now aware of what those girls had told police.
They were planning on slitting her throat and putting a blanket over her head and making it look like she was sleeping in the morning.
And then leaving.
And just leaving.
Leaving her there.
But for some reason, at that moment, the girls changed their minds.
She wouldn't be here right now. If they had waited until 2 o'clock in the morning and done this overnight, she wouldn't have been found for hours.
So the next morning comes, and they change the plan. Mm-hmm. The plan is now to go to the park, into a park bathroom?
Yeah.
They brought her here to the park on Saturday morning to kill her in this bathroom. Their big concern was finding a drain for the blood to go down, not the fact that they were going to stab and kill somebody.
As they leave Morgan's house for the park, Anissa tells police Morgan lifts up her white jacket, the knife tucked in her waistband, and Anissa tells police, quote, "I thought, dear God, this was really happening." But once inside that park bathroom, something happens between the girls, now hatching their second plot.
There was a back and forth between Morgan and Anissa about who was going to stab the girl. Both of them chickened out, essentially, and said that they told police they couldn't do it. So for the second time, the plan to kill her didn't work out.
But there would be one more plan. The girls leave that bathroom and walk down a nearby road to the woods. Peyton's parents take me there, revealing to me what their little girl told them.
They got to the park and they told her they wanted to play hide and seek in the woods. And she told me she didn't want to go.
She sensed it.
Yeah, she did say she was forced to go.
To play hide and seek.
She was forced to go into the woods.
In fact, the girls tell police about that game of hide and seek.
And Morgan was the first seeker, and so Anissa and the victim were hiding. Anissa told her to lay down in the dirt, and she didn't want to.
Anissa tells police she sits on Peyton and that Peyton says to her, "I can't breathe." Anissa tells investigators she was thinking, if I sat on her, Morgan could then stab her. But she tells police they both fear Peyton's screaming will draw attention. Anissa gets up.
In that moment, they were passing the knife back and forth because they were having second thoughts, even in that moment.
At that point, one girl says to the other, just go crazy.
Yeah.
A short time later, Anissa tells police Morgan takes the knife, turns to her friend and says, "I'm not going to until you tell me to." Anissa says she then told Morgan to, quote, "go ballistic, go crazy." Peyton is stabbed 19 times, stumbling, trying to get up.
Anissa told police that after they had stabbed her, she yelled, "I hate you, I trusted you." The suspects were getting worried that somebody would hear her, and so they told her to lay down, and they said that she wouldn't lose blood as quickly.
The two girls tell police they signaled to Peyton they would get her help, but they had no plan to. They would leave her right there.
And has Peyton talked at all about the horror of that moment?
We asked her what she remembered about what happened, and she said she remembered everything.
Everything. Her friends at that sleepover asked by police how they felt about what they did. Anissa seemed most torn.
She said, according to police, the bad part of me wanted her to die. The good part of me wanted her to live. When you hear that?
When I hear that, I hear a girl who was struggling with the decision that they were making. She sensed that it was the wrong decision to be making.
Police say Morgan said, "It was weird that I didn't feel remorse."
Yeah.
This was a girl who'd been in your home many, many times. That line, "It was weird that I didn't feel remorse."
That was hard to read because I thought that she really cared about Peyton as a person and they were good friends.
In court, we've heard Morgan described as a child with problems. But did you see any of that?
Not really, no.
This wasn't a disturbed child you were bringing into your home.
No.
They knew Morgan. They liked her. They knew her parents. So when we come back, what was it? What set those girls off? Could a fictional character really convince two 12-year-olds to kill?
How do you even wrap your heads around that?
I can't.
And the debate. Should those girls be charged as adults? What we've learned tonight. And later, right here, the 12-year-old survivor. You will see her smile return, a triumph after months. Our journey with her.
2020 continues with David Muir.
Much of the world was about to hear this name for the first time.
Slender Man.
The Slender Man stabbing case.
They did it to impress Slender Man. Who is the shadowy figure? Slender Man.
Slender Man.
Slender Man, the mysterious fictional character online that few parents had ever heard of, but those girls had.
The story that the girls told police really did center on Slender Man and how they were doing this because they felt like they had to. They wanted to prove to the world that he was real.
Remember, police say after they stabbed Peyton 19 times, They were found hours later walking along the interstate toward that make-believe mansion.
2 female suspects left the scene, went to a Walmart on the south side of Waukesha to clean up, and then they were walking from Waukesha to Nicolet National Park to be with Slender Man, in their words.
They said they were headed to Slender Man's mansion in the Nicolet forest. That doesn't make any sense. It's 5 hours away by car.
That real forest that is hours away, and a mansion that doesn't even exist.
They were going to live in this mansion
Yeah.
that they believed existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you even wrap your heads around that?
I can't.
And tonight, the courts are now assessing the mental health of those 2 girls. Both Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier are right now charged as adults, facing up to 60 years in prison if they're convicted. After being evaluated by a psychiatrist, Morgan was ruled incompetent to stand trial. Anissa is now undergoing the same evaluation. Lawyers for both girls are also trying to get them moved to juvenile court. If that happens, they could be out by age 25. I asked Peyton's parents what they make of 2 vastly different fates facing those 2 girls.
Do you think they should be charged as adults?
For me, it's about making sure Peyton feels safe, and it's about making sure Peyton feels that she can move on with the rest of her life with no fear.
The attorney for Peyton's family.
The sentences are vastly different if they're tried as an adult versus a juvenile.
Correct.
Does that concern you?
We believe that it is appropriate that they continue in the adult court.
If this case goes to trial, will Peyton have to testify?
There's a possibility.
A frightening prospect for Peyton's mother and father, and for so many parents out there already reacting to Peyton's story, who had never heard of Slender Man.
We started Googling who's Slender Man, and it was interesting because, as it turns out, all kids know who Slender Man is, but we had no idea.
Just how popular is Slender Man on the internet?
There are thousands and thousands of stories told by people of all ages and genders, people from around the world.
Adding to the story every moment.
Experts say it all started with these 2 pictures posted on a blog, and then a web series about Slender Man on YouTube, then video games, children playing. And watch this moment tonight. We head into this middle school in New York, 900 miles away from Waukesha, Wisconsin, away from the media glare, away from the headlines. Their parents agreed to let us in.
Hi, guys.
And they watched and listened on headphones right outside that classroom.
I'm curious, how many of you in the room have heard of Slender Man? Really? Yeah. All of you but one.
And just listen to all of the different ways that these children, all the same age as Peyton and those girls, discovered Slender Man too.
I played a game on the iPad, but he's not real.
He's not real?
At least I don't think so.
This kid at my old school, he was playing it during computer class, and I was like, what is that? And he answered Slender Man.
So you saw it actually in school?
Yeah.
So you first found out about Slender Man on Instagram?
Yeah. My friend showed me the game online. I just saw the game and I clicked on it.
So do you tell your parents before you download an app, or do you think you downloaded it on your own?
No, I downloaded it on my own.
So you've seen him before?
Well, I've never seen him in person, but yes, I've seen him.
Where?
On the internet.
How many of you wondered, is this real or is this fake? How many of you knew about Slender Man before your parents?
And we had one last question.
How many of you tell your parents everything you look up on the internet?
And outside in that hallway, the parents.
Nearly everyone in that class said that they knew long before any of their parents. Did that surprise you?
I feel like they know things way before we do.
What surprised me is the range of technology that they use. So they're using Instagram and they're using, texting and email. And
as parents, we've been thrown to the wild, wild west with the internet and with social media.
A Wild West Peyton's family, sadly, was thrown into. And tonight here, one more thing we would discover during our journey with Peyton's family, her brother Caden there getting a kiss from Mom. Peyton had actually asked her parents about Slender Man before any of this ever happened.
Had Peyton ever mentioned Slender Man?
To me, she had. Morgan had been talking with her about Slender Man, and she would email links to different Slender Man stories that Morgan thought were, really cool. And Peyton was terrified of them. So she came to me one night and explained to me what was going on and how scared she was. And I just told her if Morgan was a good friend, tell her that this scares you and that you want her to stop sending them.
Did Peyton know, though, that this was a fictional character?
She was torn because she would say, Morgan knows he's real.
When you heard that Morgan thought that this character was real, did it give you pause?
A little bit, but at the same time, these girls are 12 years old, and fantasy when you're 12 years old is still a very active part of your life.
So you're thinking she's another 12-year-old girl, and at some point she'll realize
that it's just fiction. Yeah.
In fact, she thought Peyton's friends would simply grow out of it. She never imagined they could be capable of this. Fear and fantasy is nothing new for kids. When you close the Harry Potter book, it's done. When the credits roll after Hunger Games, the movie is over. But in this online world, is it hard with the line blurred between where fantasy ends and where some of these kids think reality begins?
I hate to say that something is beneficial coming out of this horrific attack, but one of the things that is beneficial is that it can start a conversation between parents and their children. It can also spark conversation among other parents.
And recognize that we're in this together. When we come back, one of the toughest and most telling moments from our interview.
I'm curious as parents sitting here, and this is, not an easy question to ask.
And for the first time, you'll meet 12-year-old Peyton. Tonight, you'll see her smile return here. We have spent months following her, the triumph you're about to witness right here, and where she takes us, her favorite place in the world.
2020 continues with Out of the Woods. Once again, David Muir.
I get down on one knee and just pray for her.
Tonight, nearly 4 months to the day since 12-year-old Peyton crawled out of those woods, a brave family with the strength to look back and somehow still be grateful for the way it all played out. The parents telling me they're grateful those girls didn't strike that first night in the bedroom or the next day in that park bathroom, because they say there would have been no one to help. Instead, grateful for that hero who just happened to take that path, finding their little girl.
The fact that he was coming down this way is just unbelievable at that moment. There's too many pieces that saved her life.
We were with them as they thanked him, hugging the man who called 911 for their daughter.
Thank you.
They're grateful to the paramedics, to the hospital minutes away, to the surgeon who discovered the biggest danger, that one stab wound, just a hair from that artery in her heart.
I think she is a very strong girl, and she's very fortunate to come through something of this magnitude.
Everybody did what they had to do at the precise moment to bring her home.
Yeah. That's how we're seeing it.
Yep. Bringing her home and determined to bring her back to school. The principal telling me they're ready for Peyton as soon as she's ready. You're determined to welcome this girl back.
Absolutely. She wants to come back here. We want to welcome her. We want to make it as comfortable as possible for her.
Uh-oh.
And tonight, for the first time, Peyton. In the one place that now makes her smile the most, the animal shelter not far from her home.
This is the place to come.
The kittens needing a home. She shows me her favorites, and there are too many to count. And on this day, she pulls out her phone, the Katy Perry concert she'd been to the night before. Those lyrics not lost on us. They're going to hear me roar. We did not ask her about those moments in the woods. There was no reason to relive that pain. But her parents wanted me to see her smile again, the smile they feared they'd lost.
She has the most beautiful smile.
Did that disappear?
Yeah.
For a little while.
We see peaks of it every once in a while.
Do you feel like your daughter's been stolen from you?
For the time being.
We'll get her back.
Yep.
What else did you need?
She's already on the way.
Can I get a blue pen stylus?
Sure.
Here, shopping for school supplies, preparing for the 7th grade.
She writes school supply shopping on the grocery list every week.
The smiles we then saw looking at her notebooks, the ones with the kittens on the front.
Observations from the ground.
Some people would say she's doing remarkably well, given what's happened to her.
I would say that way beyond expectations. I'm astonished at the way that she's been able to recover.
And tonight, Peyton and her parents allowing us into her room. The walls covered in Purple Hearts, Peyton's favorite color. Messages from children and from parents all over the world, all for the 12-year-old girl who told her parents, "I wanted to live."
This is just a fraction. We've received, I think, over 10,000 hearts and letters. I like this one. Don't let one act of evil stop you from seeing the beauty in the rest of the world.
Have you read every heart?
Every single one.
And every word?
Every word.
Has mattered?
Every single one.
Yeah. She got one heart, and all it said was, "It's not your fault." I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. It's so simple, but it's just so strong.
Family, friends helping them, perfect strangers, the gifts of food, the help with her medical bills.
This horrific act of violence brought out the very worst in a few people and the very best in thousands of people around the world.
Even an anonymous donor paying for the family's legal representation. They know Peyton could be called upon to face the two girls she thought were her friends in court. What Peyton's parents revealed to me about the other families.
I'm curious as parents sitting here, and this is, not an easy question to ask, but the parents of the other girls, have you thought about what the other parents are thinking?
I think about the other parents all the time. I can't imagine what they're going through. I can't imagine getting that phone call, hearing these things.
And knowing as it was the person
Knowing
that you
it was
raised.
the person that you loved and that you trusted.
And there was one more thing Peyton said while in that hospital bed in the hours after surgery 4 months ago.
She wanted to go back to school. She was devastated when she found out she was going to miss the last 2 weeks of school.
Really?
She loved school.
And tonight, we are happy to show you the pictures. Her walk down the driveway to the car. Mom driving her back to school. And a proud dad watching.
She's meant to do something special. She's here for a reason, to show the world to treat other people better. For parents to maybe see, dig in a little deeper about what their children are doing. Maybe she herself is supposed to be an inspiration.
La 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 la.